Good evening, everybody. We timed our session just so that we could get you all to our cocktail hour. Evolving government process with blockchain. So my colleague here is Shane, and I'll let him introduce himself, and then I'll go. Go ahead.
Great. Well, thank you for spending time with us. As you can see, I'm Shane Bigelow. Arun and I got together basically over our mutual love of handkerchiefs. So really, anybody that wants to join our club, you're welcome to join. We've got a full fashion gamut to run through. But no, we joke at Ownum. If you were here earlier and you saw Bernie Moreno, our founder, speak, and Arun shares this too, we have this messed up gene that makes us think we can fix government. And in some way, we believe that our solutions in reducing paper will reduce waste in government and allow for a more efficient process using blockchain. So to that end, the first thing that we talk about is how to enhance the trust in government. So if you think about this, 60, 70 years ago, when disparate parties had to deal with a transaction that had something to do with government, what they did was they said, well, let's have some official inside of the government compare that all of our papers actually match. And that process made perfect sense 60 or 70 years ago. It was an independent third party that could look at all the all the paper associated with, let's say, a car title, which is one of our products. So you've got a bank, an insurance company, a manufacturer, a consumer, the BMV, maybe a clerk of court, and somebody inside the government, usually the clerk of court, had to compare and look at a document. Made perfect sense. Advanced 60 or 70 years later, that's exactly what we still do. This makes no sense in a digital age. So with that, blockchain comes into play.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. And as we started our mutual admiration society for Pocket Squares, we also really started looking at, from a KPMG perspective, we have a significant state and local team, as well as a federal team right here in DC. And as I started talking to them about what Ownum was talking about, we quickly realized that while there is the long game of shaping the industry, we also realized that many states, including Ohio, we're going to talk about it, were enacting laws. State government officials, federal officials were saying, blockchain is this technology that's going to disrupt ourselves or itself or the government over time. And before we get blockchainified, how can we adopt the technology, right? And so as we see state collectives come together, as we see, and we're very encouraged by the work of the Congressional Caucus for blockchain, not just in policy definition, but making it pragmatic, making it useful for better transparency to the citizens, as well as to transparent government processes. And so when we started talking about how to bring this to life, we also said not just about one process at a time, but also cross-government issues that, whether it's health, whether it's vehicles, which we're going to talk about today, or births and death issues across the country, where transparency and trust are key issues to address.
So you may ask, well, why did we start with car titles? And obviously, it's because they're super sexy, and everybody spends lots of time thinking about their car title.
Indeed.
No, the reality is that if you're going to change government processes, you should probably start with a nonpartisan issue. So if we wanted to start with land titles, for example, there are a lot of vested interests and a lot of vested parties in that space. Car titles, Bernie made the joke earlier, show of hands, who knows where their car title actually is? Right, so about a third of the audience actually knows where it is. Turns out if you have your car title and the keys to your car, you now have a bearer bond. So you should probably know where it is. But the reality is no one thinks it matters because it costs $15 or $20 and it's a piece of paper. And the reality is it should be digital. It should be in your Apple Wallet somewhere and make the transfer that much easier. We talked earlier, if you were here for Bernie's speech, about belted systems. And the reason we call it belted is that if you say blockchain in the commercial or government space, people immediately go to cryptocurrency. Now, I don't need to tell anyone in this room about the differences between a private permission blockchain and what would be, let's say, Bitcoin, Ethereum, or a non-permission blockchain. However, you need a different term because people's mind immediately goes to the wrong place if you say blockchain. So we came up with belted. And you might say, well, this is just a marketing trick. Exactly. Yes, it is a marketing trick. What we were trying to do is to convince people to realize that a blockchain encrypted ledger that's executable and distributed defines what a permission blockchain really is and what it does. And when you pivot people to thinking about that, you wind up convincing them that yes, there is more data security, there is more transparency, and there is more efficiency in this process. And they don't get fixated on the parts of blockchain as it stands in the press and the media today that get them distracted, cryptocurrency issues and others. So this works in the commercial and government space, and we encourage people to try to use it.
So in a land far, far away, called Estonia. How many people know where that is? Oh, wow. Excellent. So I did make out a trip to Estonia in September of last year, just to find out what they were doing, how they were doing it. And from the time you land into Tallinn Airport, and even through the whole experience of what you do, whether you're in a cab, well, it's Uber times, on steroids, if you will. Your health records, your citizen identity itself is on a blockchain. The whole country of 1.3 million residents is on a public quasi-hybrid blockchain that not just manages and monitors, it's at scale. From a KPMG standpoint, as traditional system integrator, but also as advisory sort of functions to different governments in private and in public sector as well as in private sector, we're challenged in scaling because everybody gets pilots and POCs. And by the way, POCs were very 2017. All right, 2018 was pilot. Right, how do we actually get this to work with real data, real systems, real integration? And then when you go to production, how do you actually scale? And that's why going out to Estonia was very eye-opening for us in terms of not necessarily how they've implemented, but how they've integrated at scale. And that's why you see here, whether it's health records, e-government services, law enforcement, it is all on blockchain, right? And one of the conversations Shane and I were having earlier today is, it is not just about the system and the workflow, it's the identity of the individuals, the identity of the agency, which was mind-boggling in saying not just everybody can spoof an identity, right? And if you don't know the history of how blockchain got started in Estonia, it is with bad actors from a nameless nation trying to bring down the electrical grid 10, 12 years ago, right? And so they were forced into identifying a technology or finding new creative ways to protect themselves. And so this is now expanded, but this gave us, from KPMG and Ownum standpoint, a real template to say, not only can this be done on scale, this can be done across government agencies, across workflows, across paper-based systems.
So following that template, you'll see across the country, different states are trying to do different efforts. Innovate Ohio is Ohio's effort, led by its Lieutenant Governor, John Husted, to really bring innovation and technology into Ohio. So you say, well, what does that matter? Well, there are billions of dollars behind Jobs Ohio, sort of a partner institution in Ohio, that is helping to bring anything that is job-related into the state. And Innovate is focused on the technology side. Blockchain is one of the pillars of that plan. So when you look across the state governments, this is why we're so impressed by what Perian is doing, what the Chamber is doing. It's really working with these states to define how do you open yourself up and allow businesses to come in, and what do you need to do with your legislative bodies to educate them to say, okay, I should be okay with this. In Ohio this summer, we were fortunate enough to be involved with a bill that got passed that allowed for blockchain to be part of basically what is their e-sign. And you might say to yourself, well, that's probably not necessary. E-sign covered this. But if any of you have ever worked with legislators, particularly at the state level, they need air cover. If you don't supply them with air cover, and it doesn't explicitly state what you're trying to do, they will find every reason in the world to not do it. And that's understandable because they want to get reelected, and they don't want to have something on their record that is inexplicable and or causes a problem for their reelection campaign. So if you give them air cover in the legislation that allows them to say, oh, we can use blockchain, it says so right here, that enables them to push forward with these projects. So Innovate Ohio is levering that and doing a lot of projects. This is why we're focused in Ohio. We also happen to live there. And it's really one of these things that I think it becomes a model for other states. And we wanted to focus on it here because this template, whether it's Estonia, Innovate Ohio, is really how you can go and attack government and other businesses around these processes to build out whatever your company might be doing.
Oh, that's me. Okay. So when we started sort of talking to Bernie and Shane about what Ownum was trying to do, I think it was last summer,
Yeah.
right? And they were
At the
fortunate.
handkerchief convention.
I'm sorry. Yes.
the handkerchief.
Yes, exactly. Um, we were fortunate for them to fly out and meet us in New York, and I asked Bernie this very simple question. Why Cleveland and why Ohio? And he said, why not? I didn't have an answer. And what that essentially helped us internalize is that by focusing on governments and administrations and legislatures that already get the concept but are willing to do something about it is a huge differentiator, right? And from a Big Four audit standpoint, in the different work that we do, we know blockchain is going to disrupt us, our audit business, our tax business, our advisory business. So outside looking in, inside looking out, we said, as we go across industries, and you see that on the left, is we started doing work in supply chain with a large aerospace company, right? And we walked in to say, well, it's going to be parts provenance, everybody gets it, it's going to be in and out. Lo and behold, the real value is not in parts provenance, but in customs and duties. It's in duty drawbacks. It's cross-border provenance of not just product, but CBP and other agencies playing into that realm and digital trusted ecosystem. As we started, peeling away the layers from the platform, and I feel that how Ownum has gone about designing this, it is as real to the close and as close to what happens today, right? You're not ripping and replacing, you're augmenting and you're channeling a real transformation by, and I don't like to use the word transformation, but essentially you're bringing in a new capability that helps current agencies, current leaders in government understand how blockchain is going to actually work.
So if you think about why we got together, part of it was that we evaluated every consulting firm that was out there. We knew that we would need an implementation partner, and so as we made these evaluations, it became abundantly clear that KPMG was clearly doing the most work in the space. They had the most projects, they had the most proof statements, and the most real things that they had actually coded and put out there. So it made it a very easy choice for us when we look across the consultant landscape to figure out who to partner with. But the reality was it had to have the same mindset. So if people want to go in and solve really, really big problems with blockchain, like taking your medical record and putting it on a blockchain, God bless them. I really hope somebody can figure that out. But our view was, let's find lifts that can save government money right away. Right? Let's find nonpartisan issues that can save government money right away. And I'll give you the example of Ohio. So Ohio has, they spend $80 million per year on their titling for cars. So you say to yourself, okay, well, that seems like a pretty large amount of money. And if you ask Ohio, they say great things like, wow, we don't exceed our budget. That's perfectly fine. They really don't. They spend pretty much what comes in. So good for them, good fiscal management. But the reality is, should it cost $80 million? Probably not, because that $80 million is paid for by all of the citizens of Ohio. And so if that number can be lower, that's a savings back to the taxpayer and ultimately a savings to the government to say, look what we delivered. And so whether it be vehicle titling or the birth and death certificate process, if any of you have ever been through that, obviously it's cumbersome. It's an asset that you need. Whether you're signing your child up for baseball leagues, you need sometimes your birth certificate, and then you have to go find it. That should be digital. These are efficiency savings, but they're also cost savings for the consumer and for the government. So let me walk through what this process looks like. So as I mentioned, there are 7 different parties taking titling, for example, that have to come together. Car dealer, customer, title issuance authority, insurance company, bank, manufacturer, and clerk of court. So you say to yourself, okay, they all come together, and this old process of the clerk of court sitting, in the upper left corner there, the clerk of court would compare all the documents. And I call this person a fictitious name. Let's say her name is Betty Sue. So Betty Sue gets in all the documents from the car dealer, all the documents from the bank, from the insurance company, and compares that all of the lien information is exactly what the consumer said it should be, and it was what the dealer said it should be. But the reality is errors are all over the place. If you ever went to buy a car and you said to the person, I'm going to buy this $30,000 Camry or something. Okay, great. Who are you going to finance it with? I'll probably use my bank. I'm going to use Bank of America. Okay, fine. Come back in 2 days. We'll have the color you want. It'll be in inventory. Come and pick it up. Well, the salesperson wrote down Bank of America. But you may come back in, and in the ensuing 2 days, you might have gotten a better deal from maybe your insurance carrier. Maybe State Farm gave you a loan. So you come back in, you say State Farm. Well, no one may have changed that in the system. So now all of a sudden, Bank of America receives your title after it gets processed. And what do they do with it when they receive their title? That's not theirs. It sits on a nice desk on top of the pile of all the other titles they've received until somebody figures out that it went to the wrong place. All because you've got this paper process that stands in the way of efficiency. That costs business money, it costs government money, and it reduces the trust. So you have to fix this trust gap by fixing these problems and fixing the paper process. It is no longer necessary for everyone to come together through a person or through a paper-based process. We can do it digitally, and blockchain is the answer for how to get there.
So if you have any questions, direct them to him. I don't have any answers. So we wanted to sort of pause here and really take questions. Because I think what we're trying to do is a little groundbreaking, but it's also pragmatic in many different ways.
Yes, there's a few here.
So, question here, you've been partnering with the DMV, I'm assuming, and who ultimately is the data owner? And then 2, why blockchain and not traditional database?
Yeah, great question. So in most cases, the states are the data owner, right? So they are currently the data owner. That process doesn't change. You fill out forms to get your title. The state has that information. The state owns the data. But why blockchain is that if you tried to do this with a traditional database, first, I do believe in the theory that all databases have been hacked. And so if you believe that all databases have been hacked, this is an easy recipe for a malicious actor to come in and say, I'm going to take over ownership of all these vehicles. Cars are usually the second largest asset that people purchase. So we have to protect that asset. So the security side and the encryption of what blockchain presents is suitably important. The fact that it's executable is really the trick, right? All of these parties can come together, and through a smart contract, as soon as they confirm their individual part. The bank says, yes, that's our lien. The consumer says, yes, that's my bank. The insurance company says, yay or nay. It's binary. They are insured or they aren't insured. Then you can issue the title. Right now, if you tried to do that, you wind up with 30, 40, 60-day delays that cost a lot of money in the system. This can be done instantly. So that's why. Yes?
Can you walk me through the consumer experience with the blockchain car title?
Sure. Walk into a car dealership, preferably one that Bernie owns, and buy a Mercedes, preferably for a reasonable price. Get all the features in it, and then walk over and you basically are signing the document in some form that says you're going to buy this car. But instead of signing the document, you get a prompt on your email that says, please confirm this data. And simultaneously, everybody else is getting that same prompt, whether it be the bank, which might do it in an automated way, or the title issuance authority, the insurance company. So all of it gets put through, and all of a sudden, all of the information is verified, sometimes automated. For the consumer, they have to walk through and verify their data, and that's the process. And you walk out of the car dealership with a digital title about 45 seconds later.
Yeah. How do when the time comes to sell my car, how do I sell it?
Great. Yeah.
How do I transfer title?
Yeah, there's a way through the portal that you wind up where you have the digital title, you can transfer it to somebody else. And so since that's logged on the blockchain, the state gets their fees, they get the taxes on the appropriate amount of the vehicle sale. And once that tax is paid and the fee is paid, you can transfer your title.
What if somebody has my private key?
Well, hopefully you're good at protecting your private key, but obviously we work with a lot of partners on how to protect that through digital wallets.
I think we got the
we got the hook
going,
here.
so
Yeah.
we got to stop.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.